You swore you'd never have a marriage like your parents, and yet here you are, repeating patterns that feel terribly familiar. This is one of the most painful realizations that couples face. That recognition that despite everything you promised yourself, you're somehow recreating the exact dynamics you grew up watching. Maybe your parents never fought, so conflict felt terrifying and you've learned to avoid it at all costs. Or maybe in your situation, they fought constantly, so you learned that love meant intensity. Or maybe one parent shut down while the other chased, and now you're doing the same dance with your partner. Here's what most people don't understand about family imprints. You don't just learn what your parents taught you, you also inherit what they couldn't resolve. So now, as an adult, it's easy to understand that your own parents had unmet needs, that their own unhealed wounds impacted you, that the patterns they inherited from their parents, and then all of those needs went unmet in their marriage. You felt it, you heard it, and it feels absolutely awful to repeat it. Children absorb the emotional climate of their home, just the way they absorb oxygen. You learned what was allowed and also what had to stay hidden. Don't make your father mad. Don't upset your mother. And so, whether we like it or not, these shape our blueprint for how our relationships work today. What parts of love and closeness feel like they might pull us under. I'll share a case with you, and we'll call them Rachel and Mark to protect their confidentiality. They came to see me after 10 years of marriage, absolutely exhausted from the same cycle. Whenever Rachel needed emotional support, Mark would offer solutions. Well, Rachel didn't want solutions. She wanted to be heard. Mark took it personally when Rachel didn't seem to implement his suggestions, and then he would withdraw, feeling completely unheard. When he withdrew, Rachel would become furious, and the more angry she got, the more he shut down. By the end of the conversation, she felt completely abandoned and he felt attacked. He'd listened, he'd cared, he'd offered suggestions, and then he felt ignored, just like the last time this happened. They'd tried everything: therapy, communication workshops, date nights, books. Nothing seemed to really change this dynamic. It turns out they were trying to fix a surface problem without understanding the family imprints that created it. When we started exploring their family histories, the pattern made perfect sense. Rachel grew up with a mom who was emotionally fragile. When Rachel had needs, her mother simply couldn't meet them, couldn't sit with her in the upset she felt. Her mom kind of didn't have any words of wisdom to share. Instead, she made light of the issue, she kind of busied herself with whatever was going on in the home, and Rachel felt so ignored. Mark grew up watching his father try to fix his mom's unhappiness and fail every time. He learned that women's emotions and all of their needs were just impossible to meet. He believed supporting Rachel in moments of upset was a part of what would make him a great partner. He would do what his father couldn't. He believed if I can't fix it, I somehow failed to give her what she needs, just like my dad failed to support my mom. The whole thing felt infuriating. What was the point of well thought out advice and care if she didn't ever implement it? Neither of them were trying to hurt the other. They were both running on old family imprints that actually made perfect sense once we really looked at how each of them had grown up. Rachel wasn't looking for a solution. She wanted someone to sit with her in whether it was her disappointment or her upset. She couldn't understand why Mark took it so personally when his advice didn't seem like what she wanted with how to resolve the issue with her friend. And Mark wasn't abandoning her. He was trying to protect himself from that helplessness he'd felt as a young boy. Once they started to understand this, something could shift. They stopped blaming each other and started recognizing when their old patterns were causing all of this hurt and misunderstanding. So they learned to interrupt that cycle before it kind of took over. So once they could see what was running the show, they learned to interrupt the cycle before it took them under. And this is what becomes possible when you understand your family imprints. So, how do you know what pattern your parents' marriage might have created in you or in your partner? What's the first thing that comes to mind when I ask, what did your parents show you or model to you about conflict? Not with what they said, really what they showed you. Did they fight loudly? Did they avoid it completely? Did one shut down, roll their eyes, and then maybe complain to you about it later on? So, however your parents handled conflict, it becomes like a body memory for you. Either you replicate it or you swing in the opposite extreme, trying not to be like them at all. But neither one of that end of the spectrum is truly you. We want to find your middle ground. Maybe you grew up with parents who fought constantly, and you might avoid conflict at all costs. If they never fought, you might not know how to navigate disagreement without feeling like their relationship is ending. The next thing to consider is, what did your parents teach you about your natural emotional needs? Were they met consistently? Were you allowed to have needs at all? Or maybe you had a parent who struggled with addiction or was emotionally immature. So you were expected to be the balanced one, the one to steady them. And so if your emotional needs were dismissed or minimized, you likely learned to hide them. If your needs were met with resentment, you learned that asking for what you want means burdening the people you love. Think about all of these early experiences and how they shape how you show up in love now. If you were to answer honestly, did you ask for what you need clearly in your relationship? Do you hint and hope your partner will guess? Do you pretend you don't need anything at all? Keep in mind, this is all happening in the background, shaping your connections. And sometimes it sits right at the heart of the resentments you're building up inside of your own mind, probably that your partner has no idea about. Give some thought to, who were you in the family? Maybe the caretaker, the peacemaker, the one who had to grow up too fast, the one who had to accommodate big emotions to make sure everything stayed steady and that everyone else felt comfortable. These family roles don't just disappear when you leave home, they follow you into your relationships. If you were the responsible one, you likely carry more than your fair share in your partnership. If you kept your needs quiet, you likely struggle to just take up space and share your natural needs. So, understanding your role inside of your family helps you to see when you're unconsciously recreating it, instead of consciously choosing how you want to show up today inside of your relationship. So, what do you do when you notice and recognize the pattern in your parents' marriage and then how it's living out in you? Well, I'd like to invite you to start by having compassion for yourself. When you're navigating patterns that were set in motion long before you were even born, it's important to name it when it happens, not in blame, but in recognition. Oh, here's my old pattern showing up. This is what I learned growing up. This is actually not about you. Remember, in that moment, you have a choice. You can let the pattern run automatically, reacting the way you always have, or you can pause, name it, and then choose differently. It might sound something like, I notice I'm getting really anxious right now, and I know this is part of my pattern. I grew up watching my mom wait for my dad. Sometimes he'd come home really late, and sometimes not at all. For me, silence meant abandonment. So that's what's happening for me right now. That's what's coming up when you didn't text back. It's about this old wound. And I want to share that with you so I don't make this bigger than it is. Or maybe it sounds something like, I'm noticing I'm taking over and trying to fix everything again. This is my pattern. I learned in my family that my value comes from how much I do for others. I can feel myself slipping into that right now. I want to stop and let you handle this instead of jumping in. And I just share these examples to highlight the importance of not blaming your partner or making excuses or even just glossing over the whole issue. You're taking full ownership of your pattern while also opening up transparency. You're saying, this is mine to work on, and I'm working on it right now in real time while I'm sharing it with you. This is profoundly different from understanding your pattern intellectually. Lots of people can sit in therapy and say, yes, I have abandonment issues because my dad left or my mom died when I was little. That's really great awareness, but it typically doesn't mean change. Change happens when you catch yourself mid-pattern and interrupt it. When you say out loud, I'm about to do the thing I always do. I see it happening and I'm choosing another way to respond. That moment of naming it creates a pause, a space between the old automatic reactions and a new choice. And in that gap, everything can shift. And honestly, it's really helpful if your partner hears this. Because when you name your pattern, they can stop taking your reaction personally. They can understand that your panic isn't about them forgetting to text you back, it's about history. Or that shutdown isn't a rejection of them, it's a protective mechanism that you learned decades ago. Or that your overfunctioning isn't because you think they're incompetent, it's because you were taught that love means doing everything for yourself. When your partner knows this, they can support you instead of getting defensive or reactive. Maybe they say something like, I see you pulling away right now. Do you need a minute? Instead of, why are you always shutting down? You never want to talk about anything. And here's the critical difference. Naming it doesn't mean you keep doing it indefinitely. This is my pattern can't become an excuse. The point of naming it is to create enough awareness that you can eventually be free of it, free of running the pattern altogether. At first, you'll notice the pattern after it's already happened. Oh, I just did that thing again. But that's progress. Then you'll notice it when it's happening. Oh, here I am doing it right now. Eventually, you'll notice it before it happens. I feel the urge to do this, and I'm choosing not to react in that way. When you start naming it, you're no longer unconscious with that painful pattern. You're no longer just reacting. You're becoming the person who sees the pattern and is choosing something different. And now that's how you stop repeating what you learned and start creating what you actually want. You don't have to keep repeating the same patterns. You can create something new. If you want to understand the specific family imprints shaping your relationship, I created the Reveal Your Family Imprint quiz with a series of questions that help you connect the dots between what you experienced growing up and what's happening inside of your relationship now. It's an in-depth quiz with many of the questions I ask my clients in our work together. And it's going to show you exactly what's running in the background, whether you're unconsciously chasing unavailable partners, or maybe avoiding conflict because it feels so dangerous in your body, overfunctioning, overgiving because that's how you learn to earn love, or shutting down because vulnerability was never safe. This quiz gives you clarity on your specific pattern. So instead of just knowing something feels off, you'll understand exactly what you're responding to and what needs to shift. You can find the link in the description below. If you'd like ongoing support in navigating these patterns, join my Sunday Relationship Tips newsletter. Every week, I'll share with you an insight that might shift how you're seeing what's happening. Join me here in this channel for more support, for videos just like this. You're not on your own trying to figure out how to make these positive changes. Life's too short for love that feels challenging.